So after taking a look at this, so anybody find anything different than what you were that you were already looking at? So, in other words, how many people reach the high numbers in the self-actualization? 5 plus. Okay, that's good. You know what does that mean to you guys? You reach self-actualization. What's that? You know strengths and weaknesses. You know, yeah, you know who you are. Okay. Why is that important to motivation? You know what motivates you? What's that? To some extent, okay. You may not totally know what motivates you, but this is just another one of those tools that we would. How many people had high scores in social? Nobody. Had 6, okay. Okay, yeah, that. Yeah, pretty much. Look there, you're looking for 5 or above, right? Okay, that's considered high because this is straight actually division on your scores. How about autonomy? We had high scores, 5 plus in autonomy. Okay. Those are all good. Those are actually really good scores to have. Okay. So the reason why this is really important is, as we look at motivation, okay, what motivation is that is forces that influence the way we do things. Okay. So sometimes those forces are internal, right? We've talked about instances here before in the class about being self-motivated, or you're in, you know, for those people that are introverted, they tend to be more self-motivated, right? They drive their self-sense from inside. Well, that's one way to motivate. The other way is to externally motivate. Okay, and when we look at this, motivation is kind of a process. Okay, so you're going to start out with a need or a want. Okay, why do we go to work? Money, right? Okay. Money is one motivation factor. Anybody else go to work for a different reason? Stay busy, right? Okay. That's another want or need, right? Huh? Yeah, you need money to survive. Benefits, yeah. Money's definitely money, benefits. The fact you want to stay busy, those are all reasons for those people who are self-actualized, okay? Maybe it's that sense of completing a good job, okay? Being able to complete good tasks. Those are all needs and wants, okay? So then the next part of this is you're going to have an aspect of this where you're going to actually, there's going to be some kind of behavior there. Okay? You're going to work, if you go to work to get paid, would that behavior be different than if you were going to work to be self-fulfilled? How many people say yeah? Okay, if you're going to work to get paid, this is where I say why I quantify pay is not always the most important motivator. Okay, but pay is definitely a need. Okay, but your behavior is different if you're going to work to get paid, or if you're wanting to be self-fulfilled, or you want to do a good job, or you want to stay busy. Those types of things are different, right? Than just getting paid or getting paid in benefits. Okay. What do you think the mentality is of some people who just go to work to get paid? Huh? Yeah, I used to call them, they're the people who were there, okay? They occupied a position. Were they typically the best employees in the group? You think they were the best employees that I had? Yeah, because really all it was doing was it's fulfilling their basic need. A lot of times, people in that category who are just getting paid, they do a job just to get paid, which means they're there only for that reason, which means they're not super motivated. Okay, they're not going to do the best job for you. Okay, so what you're going to do then after that point is there's going to be, based on that behavior, there's going to be some kind of reward. Okay? And once that reward is there, there's going to be some kind of feedback. Okay? That's going to, and based on that, that's going to go back up to here to fulfill that need or want. Okay? This is a big circle. Okay? As leaders or managers, what can we impact in this circle? Can we impact the need or want? No, right? No, that's we all have those, okay? It's not something as a manager that I can turn around and say that my needs and wants are going to be the same as anybody else in the room, okay? They're going to be definitely, it's going to be a different thing. Behavior. Can we impact that? Yeah, you can, to a certain extent. Okay, definitely to a certain extent. Can we impact the reward? Oh, definitely. This is where we come in as leaders and managers. We are interjected at this point in the process. Okay, and from that far forward, okay, because we're impacted by the reward, we also impact the feedback, right? Okay. In turn, that feedback impacts what? Fulfilling the need or want, okay, sometimes. And it definitely also impacts the behavior. Should impact the behavior, right? Depending on how we address it as leaders or managers. So that's how it kind of works in the way we do things. Now these rewards, we put these rewards into two categories. Intrinsic and extrinsic. So when you're looking at that aspect of it, okay, intrinsic, we'll go to the extrinsic first. Extrinsic rewards. What do you think an extrinsic reward would be? Think about it as an external reward. We've covered a lot of those. Those are the real obvious ones, right? Money, right? Benefits. What else? And under benefits, you have a whole thing like time off, you got leave, insurance. All those types of things fall under that general group of benefits, right? How about bonus? Or commission? Extrinsic rewards to me are what were those things that we would be called extrinsic rewards are those hard rewards, okay? What I call hard items. They're items that everybody gets and everybody, could you really think about those types of intrinsic motivators? Do we as an individual manager impact any of these really? No, right? They're all these. Most of those are pretty well set by the company, right? Those are not something we can directly impact on, unless you own the company, and then of course you can directly impact it. But most management people, you can't impact these a whole lot. Okay, you might be able to impact bonuses and commissions a little bit. Okay, depending on the individuals that you're at. Now, if you're looking at extrinsic motivators, okay, let's look at the opposite of these. Okay, because there are some negatives, right? Ways to motivate. So in this extrinsic category, what would be a negative way to, a negative motivator? Think about this. What happens, anybody in here work for a very autocratic leader or an autocratic manager? Do as I say, not as I do type of manager. One who absolutely says my way or the highway. Okay. You guys might not have, but there are still people out there. So that underneath here, those are things like threats. Okay. Or those other types of things would be punishments. Okay. We used to use, when I first started out in the business I was in, we did use punishments. Okay. Now there are still punishments that you're going to use, right? Somebody shows up late, work late for a week. Are you going to just let that go? Probably not, right? Okay. You might use a punishment in that regards where you might suspend them, right? That's a punishment. Okay. Athletes, what do they use? Professional athletes, what do they use as a negative? Fines, right? Okay. The NFL last week, I totaled it up. I think they dealt like $2 million in fines out last week. Okay. To teams and coaches that didn't wear masks. Okay. I think their fines total almost $2 million. Okay. But again, because that's the only option they have. They don't really have anything else they can do. They can either suspend them or fine them. And that's really they don't have much other leeway as far as motivators go from the NFL, from the league. But yeah, it was almost $2 million in fines last week. Those are all types of punishments. Now, we use those, right? I mean, you're going to use those. I've used them. I've suspended employees, okay, with and without pay, okay, depending on the situation. And again, those are types of things you still will use from time to time as an external motivator, okay? Typically because you have to, okay? You can't totally get away with this. Now, the threats aspect, probably not something I use on a regular basis. I've been using on a regular basis. I don't really get to the punishments aspect until you really messed up, okay? When you start really messing up and I don't have much other choice, the saying I used to have and when I was leading my teams was this: if we get to the point where I'm starting to work on paper, okay, and I'm starting to write things up, okay, then you might as well start looking for another job. Because at that point, I've exhausted all other ways to motivate you, and obviously you're not going to be happy, and you're not happy, okay? So if you're not happy, time for you to find some other place. And if you don't want to do that on your own, I'll be glad to help you, okay? And that's where we start getting into these types of things. Another one, punishment is a write-up, right? Okay. Most of the time, I usually would not get into this lower category, okay? Although these are definitely things you as a leader can impact, right? Externally, okay? Not as fun, probably not as, definitely proven through many studies not to be as effective. But they are effective if your hands are tied, as in the case in the NFL, okay? They're tied by a player's contract, okay? So, and it's also the league trying to enforce their rules on the teams, right? There's really not a lot else they can do, right? You're not going to be able to get them to do those other types of things unless they do that. So now, when you go to take a look at this, okay, intrinsic. So that's going to be the opposite of that, right? So what would be some positive intrinsic things that you would do? We talked about one already, right? Okay. How about self-awareness? You know, sense of responsibility. Okay. This aspect of pride in work. Okay. Anybody think of anything else? Well, all you athletes probably are pretty good at this one. Accomplishments, right? If you make a couple excellent plays, what do? They give you a game ball, right? Or give you something else, you know, some kind of recognition along those lines. Okay. This is the biggest category where most modern motivation happens by leaders, is in this category. Okay. Now, there are some negative aspects to those types of things. The book calls Tapping into Self-Doubt. There's also demeaning behavior. Okay. This is the category here. I can tell you, I don't ever use. I've never used it. Okay. However, I do know I have managers to do it, but that's a category. It's there. It's definitely something. Do you think anybody really responds to any of this very well? Okay. No. I mean, there isn't anybody out there that's going to respond to that very well. And usually, it's going to cause you some turnover because people are just not going to be happy when you start going down that road. There's no reason to go down that road. Okay. You can get 90% of what you need done in motivation in the top half of that, in this quadrant, okay? Because the way you look at this, these are set by the company's extrinsic values. When are they going to be an impact to you? All these types of things here. When are you going to evaluate those if you're a person looking to go to work for them? When you get hired, right? Okay. If these aren't meeting your needs when you get hired, what are you going to do? Turn the job down, right? You're going to go somewhere else. Now, on the other side of the coin, that's why I said this aspect here, where you're going to spend 90% of your time. Okay. I can tell you, I spent 90% of my time there, and you're going to still, no matter what, you're probably going to still 10% of your time as a manager or leader is going to be down here. Okay. Because you are, at some point in your career, going to encounter employees that are not going to react to anything you want to do here. Okay. I've had employees like that. Okay. I'm sure that you guys in the sports world, what happens when you get down to this point? Usually at that point, you're going to get cut, right? If you're in pro sports, you're down in this area, they're just going to cut you. Okay. You're just not going to make it. Okay. And you're going to be out of work. That's their way of responding to that aspect of it. This here is pretty doggone final at this end right here. And you're not going to get much more finality than that. Okay. So these are ways, general categories that we can do to do this. Okay. So I'm going to bring back up a little bit of a couple of things that we kind of talked about earlier in the talk. And we talked about them in kind of a general way. Okay. So we talked a little bit about, anybody remember this guy? A couple weeks ago, Maslow. Okay. He was the first guy who looked at the way psychology works within us as humans and the way we can look at motivation. Okay. So his, depending on how you look at it, I'm a traditionalist. I still prefer the pyramid. There's a couple of other ways to represent what he does. Sometimes it's circles, sometimes it's others. But basically, he's divided into 5 categories. Okay, top is self-actualization. So you guys that scored really well, okay, you guys are in the top part of that pyramid already. Okay, we're up, rolling right to the top. Okay. Now these here, these down here at the bottom, psychological needs. So, we remember what we said about the psychological needs? What are they? What's the psychological need? Most basic needs we have. Okay, food. Okay, shelter. Okay, those are all those types of things that are psychological in nature. Because you can't really work, right? If you can't focus. And I can tell you because I've had employees like this, they don't focus well if they don't know where the next meal's coming from. Okay? They don't know, if they don't know where they're going to sleep tonight, do you think that they're going to be really focused at work? No. Those are things that we can impact a little bit, and I have throughout my career, but typically, because I've worked with a lot of that population, okay? But you're limited to what you can do there. None of these are going to really help that, right? I mean, a little bit if you get into this category, but again, when you're starting to take, that's not going to be an instant thing. So the next aspect of those are what we call safety needs, right, or security needs. Remember what we talked about for security needs? Family. Okay. The aspect of being safe and secure. In other words, if they're, even though you may be sleeping in a shelter, is that the most secure way to be able to say that you're going to be able to live? Okay. Shelter living, guys, I've been there. I know what it is. Okay. It's not fun. Okay, and it's not real super secure. There are lots of shelters. If you don't make it there by a certain time, you don't get a bed. Okay, so you're going to have to immediately take everything with you each day when you leave. So it's not a super secure way. So things like shelter. Okay, those types of things are really going to want to make sure that you're going to be there. Okay. The next aspect of this, the other aspect of security is job security, right? A lot of people talk about that, especially in these days, right? Is any job really secure? Yeah, probably in this time, even less, okay? And I can tell you from actual personal experience, I've been through 2 school closures, okay, where the company went bankrupt, okay? And I can tell you to manage groups of individuals in that setting where you didn't know if your last day was going to be today, okay, is very, very difficult to keep them motivated. Okay, almost impossible to motivate them to get the task done at hand. Okay, then the next one, I'm trying to keep the ones that. So we got the next 2 categories of esteem. Okay, I just want to make sure my terms are the same as the book. And belongingness. I use different terms, but they all mean the same thing. Okay. So this is where you can start to impact those types of things. Okay. You guys all belong to a team, right? Everybody pretty much in here is an athlete. So when you're an athlete, right? What's that aspect of a team? The aspect of a team. What's that? kind of family, right? It's kind of a big extended family, okay? Whether you're on or off the field, typically you're you're probably hanging out at least with a group of them. Okay, I know in football it's a bigger group, okay, so you might not be hanging out with everybody, but typically you guys are all going to be at least friends, okay? You're definitely going to be there on the field for them, right? Whether you're on offense, defense, or in any sport, okay? You're going to know that you're going to, and when you're part of a team, you're part of that sense of belonging. That's where you're starting with that aspect at the middle of the pyramid, okay? On the next category up is where you're starting to, it's all the feel-good stuff, right? Okay, where you start to be able to feel that you're doing a good job, okay? You like to, this is where we start to really impact, okay? Here, from here up, we as lead managers on Maslow is where we can impact, okay? Belongingness, we can create that team environment. I can tell you that in my career, no matter where I worked, most everybody, we fostered a team environment, okay? Which means things like everybody gave you a sense, okay, to ask everybody how things were going, okay? Where, you know, if somebody was having a problem, what could we do to help out, okay? On those types of, that sense of creating that family-like network, okay? And then esteem, making people feel good when we had, you know, right? You guys win, right? What's that do for your ego, and your self-esteem? It goes up, right? Nobody likes to lose, okay? Nobody likes to lose, okay? But that's also part of what we do. But the last part of this is self-actualization. So this is the area here. And really, the most of what we do as leaders in motivation occurs in this middle part of the pyramid, okay? Now, the next one we had, anybody remember Hertzberg? Okay, this is the other guy that kind of along the same lines as Maslow, except he looked at it in two different ways. We looked at it in hygiene. And motivator. Okay. Basically, the hygiene factors in Hertzberg really are these factors down here, right? These are things that we can't control. Okay, so hygiene factors when it comes to individual things like food, shelter, okay, security, okay, knowing those basic needs, those are hygiene factors, okay? Looking at those as being something we would need to live, okay? Motivators, on the other hand, are all these other things that we've kind of talked about. So he kind of split it down the middle and looked at motivation. What can we impact, okay? So his aspect of this would be in these things that would be here. Also, concentrated is, this is where Hertzberg came in really. He's the one who really started to define these, okay, as motivators, okay? Things about adding responsibility to an individual, okay? Showing them a sense of achievement, okay? These are all things that really, really showed us how to start looking at motivation from a different perspective, okay? The last aspect they had with this, which was one that was along the same lines, which is ERG. We didn't really talk a whole lot about this before. You know, you're more looking at how to manage from an individual perspective. And ERG is again a similar motivational theory, which really, it's just a different way of looking at the same factors that Maslow and Hertzberg did. Okay, so what you have here is existence, relatedness, and growth. Okay, so realistically, looks a lot like the other two guys, right? They just redefine it in a little bit different way. Okay, the existence over here really falls to Hertzberg's hygiene factors, or the bottom part of Maslow's pyramid. Okay. Relatedness kind of starts to grow, gets into this part where they're looking at the motivation factors. Relatedness really comes to the motivator here into the middle part of the pyramid of Maslow. Okay. The last one is really where ERG kind of started going in, this aspect of growth, which the only place you really see that is here at the top here in self-actualization in Maslow. Okay, growth is that aspect of, which we didn't talk about already. Growth in a position can be a really good motivator, right? Okay. You know, you as athletes, where do you guys hope to grow to? Get to the point where you get paid, right? Okay. So that's that improvement, right? That's why a lot of times coaches, right, will move, especially lower coaches, move around a lot, right? They want that opportunity to grow. Okay. Hopefully getting to that point where they can be in a senior coaching position, right? Where they can lead a team in a position. Okay. The only way they can do that is to grow. Okay. That's why you see a lot of those. That's where this aspect of a self-motivator and an external motivator, right? Okay. So if we go back to the other part, this one kind of transitions both inside and outside. Because if you really want to grow, you have to want to do that, right? Now, as a leader, can I help you with that? Huh? Yeah, I can. So this is the first point that ERG, that's for the first theory when it comes to motivation that was really important, is because this is this aspect of where both of those sides of the factor, both intrinsic and extrinsic, can work together, okay? As well as the fact it really isn't covered in the other two guys, okay? When they look at motivation from either Hertzberg or Maslow, you're not really seeing that aspect of growth, right? Except a little bit of Maslow, you could say that that's part of self-actualization, okay? Knowing that you have to do that. So that's where ERG theory comes in. It really plays an important part in what we look at as motivation. Okay, and we'll go ahead and end right there for today. We'll pick up again on Wednesday with a little bit more motivation. Okay. For this week? Not yet. Yeah.
I mean, no, for last week.
For last week. Okay. Last week. Let me get here. Gotta switch gears. That's all right. Last week. Because I posted it, so that way it helps my memory out. Yes. So yeah, I can actually look here. It's right here. Okay. Just go back to week 6, and then it's all here. That way you don't have to worry about writing all that. So it's all, yeah, I posted it there for the ones who can't come to class.
Okay.
So yeah, just go right back to there.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. It was a little more extensive, that's why. It's like, yeah, I will. I won't be watching the men's game. No. Well, no, because I made the mistake in my fantasy league of pulling out Mahomes for Minshew last week.